protect them as best as we can. There's no guarantees in life, but we have to do our best. If we are not doing it, we are not doing our service as parents, as teachers, as other members of society. Thank you very much. With that, I will just pass the phone back to the phone. Yes, please put your phones away. Nice away.
Thank you. Okay, does that work for you? All right, can everybody hear us? Yes. All right, well, thank you for having us here. This is not my first visit. I'd love to come and visit your community, mostly because you are the nicest people that I have ever met. And I love your smile. Okay. So we are going to talk. For today's visit, we're going to talk a little bit about school safety. It's a topic that can sometimes be a little bit scary, right? Because we're really talking about when somebody comes into a place to do something dangerous or do something bad, to harm us or to harm our children. And as law enforcement officers, we prepare ourselves mentally and physically, emotionally to respond to these type of events. But as we mentioned, we can't do everything in law enforcement by ourselves. We need a partnership with the community, and that includes our youngest members of the community. That includes our children, right? And so today, I'm going to talk about a couple of practical things that we can do to build a mindset of safety for ourselves and for our children. And then I'm also going to talk about what I actually think is more important, is a way to address maybe the larger systemic issue and to prevent somebody from wanting to act in this dangerous way. And so first, we subscribe to a nationwide program. We agree with, there's various videos that you can go online, public service announcements and some training that is simply called Run, Hide, Fight. And in an event that somebody comes to the school to do a shooting, or maybe it's your workplace, it can really be anywhere. The same concept applies anywhere. Those three concepts of running, of hiding, or fighting are something that you or the children could potentially use to keep themselves safe or to end it. Now, we simply can't tell you what to do in every situation, because every situation is different. And every person that is going to encounter a dangerous situation is going to have to understand as much of the circumstances as they can for themselves and make a decision for themselves. I would also say, especially at the schools that might already have a protocol in place, sometimes schools will go into lockdown, and the teachers might say, everybody come to this particular classroom. We're going to lock the doors, we're going to close the blinds and the windows, and we're going to hide in the corner. So anything that we say right now is general guidelines, but shouldn't necessarily be used if there's already a plan in place to keep yourselves or your children safe. But in the Run, Hide, Fight program, the very first thing that we do, if we can, is to run away. So imagine that you're at your office, or you're somewhere, maybe you're on the playground at the school, and you hear what sounds like gunshots. And perhaps people start yelling and screaming, and you look over and you see that there is somebody that is shooting, right? It's not exactly like the movies or on TV, but still, a person holding a gun looks like a person holding a gun. And so it shouldn't be too hard to think, I don't want to be over there near that person, I want to be somewhere else. And so, if you are able to, you want to put as much time and space between the bad guy and yourself as possible, right? And you might have to make a decision on which direction to run, but generally, If the bad guy's over there, you go away. The run part of it also asks that you tell other people on your way out. So if I'm running away and Jeff is just showing up for school and he's locking up his bike, I want to quickly tell him there's danger, there's a shooter, let's go. And I yell and I tell everybody I can. That's the best way that I might be able to help save other lives, right? I don't want to keep this a secret. I want to tell everybody. Okay. The second part is hiding. Now, this will generally mean, this is kind of like what the schools will do, is going into lockdown. They'll shut the doors, they'll lock the doors, they turn out the lights, and this is a very valid response, because sometimes, so in the case of the schools, a teacher, she's not going to leave 25 kids there by herself. She's going to try to protect them. And some kids just aren't going to be able to run, or maybe you suffer from some type of situation where you can't run away. Well, the next best thing then is to hide. If the bad guy cannot see you or cannot find you, then there's a very good chance that you won't be hurt. And so maybe in a school or an office environment, maybe you hide under a desk, or maybe you hide behind bookshelves. But it's literally, and not to sound funny about it, but sometimes you can teach little kids that it's like hide and seek, like it's a game. You're serious, and when you teach your children about this is not a game, but you tell them it's kind of like that. You don't want to be found. You don't want to make noise. You don't want them to see you. And so if you or your children or whatever the situation is can get into a room, can close the door, maybe they can push something in front of the door so that it's hard to come in. Normally, bad guys will not spend time trying to force their way into a room that's hard to get into. Bad guys are usually cowards, and they're usually looking for the easiest thing to do, to cause problems. And so, if the door is closed and locked, or maybe if something's pushed in front of it, they will move on to somewhere else, and then you can be safe, right? Remember, in this day and age, almost everybody has a cell phone. Sometimes those devices might, especially if you're at school and then the news starts talking about it, your parents or your loved ones might reach out to you. They might want to call you, and then your phone might ring. So what I would tell you is to turn the ringer off. Put it in silent mode, right? Don't pick up and call necessarily, but you can dial 911 you can text 911 in Chandler. You can text your family, you can tell them what's going on, but you must do everything you can do as quietly as possible, right? And sometimes we would find that information very helpful if we knew what part of the school or your office the bad guy was in, and you were able to text 911 and tell them that information gets to us, and then we can plan our response on how to best bring the situation to an end. And then the last one might be the hardest one to really think about, but it's fight. And I'm not here today to necessarily tell your first graders that they should go fight the bad guy. That is not what this is about. This is about, if I can't run away, and if while I'm hiding, the bad guy comes and finds me, if I have no other choice, I don't want to just sit there and become a victim. I don't want to just sit there and get hurt. And so I want to do everything that I can to stop that person from hurting me or somebody else. And so if you go to YouTube and you watch some of these short ones, there's a long movie called Run, Hide, Fight. It's a Hollywood thing. I haven't seen it. That's not what we're talking about. But if you watch these short public service announcements, you'll see that people might pick up anything that they have in the office or the school. They might pick up a fire extinguisher or a chair and use whatever they can find to fight the bad guy, to try to control the weapon, and to make them want to not be there, or to take over the control of the situation. I'm telling you that, we're trained police officers. We have equipment, we've got tools, but if you throw a rock at my head, or if you poke me in the eyes, it's still gonna hurt me, and I'm still gonna flinch, and I'm not gonna like it. And so no matter how prepared a bad guy comes with their weapons or their protection, if you absolutely have to take some type of matter into your own hands, if you must fight them, remember that the same place that hurts on you will hurt on the bad guy. And so if you're in the school and all you have is scissors or a ruler or a pencil box or a big heavy book, use it to disrupt whatever it is that they're doing, because you don't want a book to the face. I don't want a book to the face. The bad guy doesn't want that either, okay? But I would say that's probably the last resort. This is when there's no other option, right? Because ultimately, we want you to go as far away as you can, and we want you to hide and be as safe as you can. So before I go on to some of my other thoughts, I just want to ask Jeff, do you have anything that you are thinking about and you'd like to add?
No, I think you're pretty much spot on. I mean, fighting is the last resort. Like the commander said, if you hit somebody in the nose, you're going to start to tear up, right? If you ever bumped your nose, got hit by a ball or something like that, well, same thing. If he's in close contact and you just go like that and hit him in the nose, that's probably going to cause a reaction from him, and probably not a pleasant one. It's going to hurt. But this program that Zach has been talking about has been in the books for years and years and years now. We see a lot of different ways we can defend ourselves, like he said. But again, like he said, it's the last resort. It's something that if you have an opportunity to do something like that, great. But running or hiding or something like that, and calling 911 and leaving your phone open so we know what's going on, that's a great idea too, if you can do that. So I'd second exactly what the commander's saying. Every situation is different. This isn't meant to scare anybody or do anything, but something in a worst case scenario happens and you guys have your cell phone, dial 911. That way we can start getting all our people over here, all of our equipment, and go that route. The schools, I mean, they lock the doors, they close the windows. They're trying to make themselves, anytime, just like any other crime that's committed, it's a crime of opportunity. So if they find open doors everywhere, they're going to try to go through open doors. Keep all the doors outside locked if you can, and you'll probably go on to some other place. That's what I would just add to it right there. So.
Thank you. So before I continue, I just want to know, are there any questions that we can answer about this part right now? And we're definitely going to have lots of time for any type of police question near the end. Yes, sir.
What if you're stuck in a bathroom during school?
Okay, so I'm imagining that most school bathrooms, I don't think that you can lock the door, right? And so if you hear the noise out in the hallway, if it were me, and not to sound gross, but I might just go into the stall and sit down, close the door, and pull my feet up, so that if anybody walks in and just looks, they don't see any feet, and they don't know. And then, of course, you'd be as quiet as possible, tell others to do the same. But that's kind of putting yourself, and you're kind of putting yourself in a corner, but also you're out of sight, so maybe you're out of mind. This is where it's hard for me to tell somebody what they should do every time, because the situation could be different for every different person. So it's not a bad plan to get into a room where you can hide and close a door. There might be better rooms than others, but if you find yourself in that situation, do your very best to become invisible, right? Just to disappear. Good question.
Yeah, I concur. That's what I would do.
Yes, sir.
So, most school shootings and stuff like that, 9 out of 10 times they're all very casualty or injury, right? So, during the lockdown, let's say during your right, teacher, you call 911, how fast can you expect to respond before
Before who finishes the job, the law police or the bad guy? Well, I would say this, the minute you call 911, from the time you start talking to somebody to the time we find out about it on the street is almost instantaneous. And so while they're asking you questions, the call taker, the dispatcher, is entering that information in for both our radio dispatcher and us to read on our computer. So we're almost immediately getting the information and are starting to formulate a plan or do something about it, right? Now, in a real school shooting situation, our first job is to go find the threat and do what we're trained to do. We are going to run past injured people. We are not going to stop to do life-saving measures because there's somebody over there still causing lots of problems for lots of people. And so we train with the firefighters. We have regular training. We might see that some of us come in with firefighters to protect them and the patients, but the first officers on scene are going to go to the victim. I'm sorry, to the suspect to eliminate extra victims. Before we even start checking all the rooms and going door to door to door, could be a long time. It could be hours, especially in a very large school. So imagine if you attend one of the large schools in Chandler High or Hamilton, one of the big ones where there's thousands and thousands of students. If Hamilton High is on lockdown and we go and we take care of the bad guy, we don't know that there was just one, right? There could be more, and we're going to be very careful. And we're going to start at one point of that building and carefully look in every space that a bad guy can hide. And by the time we get to the far end, it could be hours upon hours. So that's where maybe having your cell phone and just texting your mom, we're okay, we're in lockdown, the room is safe, we're quiet, right? That type of thing, so that your mom knows that you're okay, that your dad knows not to worry any more about you than they already are. Right? Great question.
Yeah, fantastic question.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just a reminder, just keep the cell phones off. The ringer should be inside. If you're going to use them, make sure they're off.
Silent phones.
Yes. Yeah. Keep them quiet. Keep them quiet. Yes, young man.
Are you ISCON's police force?
I'm sorry. We what?
Are you ISCON's police force?
We are your police force when you are in Chandler. So, so the question was, are we ISCON's police force? The answer is yes and no, because it's my understanding that ISCON is a lot wider than Chandler, right? And so when you have now you guys are building a new facility, and I think it's going to be in Phoenix, right?
Yes.
Okay, so when that facility has visitors from the police department, that would be the Phoenix Police Department, right? Because that's in their area. And so when you're here at your facility here in Chandler, or at your schools, or your home, we are ISCON's police force, right? That's a great question. I love it.
And you know what? Sometimes we have mutual aid, so if something were to happen in Chandler, Phoenix would come over here, Tempe would come over here, all our other Chandler people would come over here, so we'd have a lot of people with different patches on them trying to help us out.
Okay.
Well, he brings up a good point. So a couple of years ago, well, every once in a while, something happens at the Chandler Mall. There's maybe some type of scare. Fortunately, nothing bad has happened. The mall's very safe, but the mall's very big. It's like a high school. It's bigger than a high school.
Yeah.
And when we need help, we do exactly that. We call all of our friends from the other agencies, and you'll see all the different colored uniforms there. And we actually train very much the same way, so that we could go to Phoenix and help them, and they could come and help us. So in a school shooting situation, I promise you will see police officers from Mesa, Tempe, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Peoria, the other side of the world will come if they need to help us, right? Because our primary job is to preserve life and protect you guys whenever it's needed, right? So, great question.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I was just wondering how at what point do we deem it necessary to initiate like a fight response as opposed to the other two, and how do we go about doing that? And what are like the do's and don'ts?
I think with your fight response, it's gonna be that's your last case scenario, worst case scenario. That's the last stone you have to throw. If you can flee or if you can hide, that would be our primary option for you. But like I said, if somebody right next to you is threatening to harm you with physical harm or deadly force or whatever the situation may be, it's time to fight. You're not gonna have to lay there and let him, assault you or shoot you or knife you or whatever the threat is. You're gonna have to defend yourself with your fists, with furniture, with any kind of blunt force object that you can find or reach or anything that would protect yourself. And anything goes to protect your life. Whatever you have to do, whatever force you have to hit him with, wherever you have to hit him at, is fine. Because you're in a deadly force encounter. So anything you need to do to protect yourself, and again, that's your third option. Probably the one that's the last resort. You don't have any other options. Yeah. I can hear you. Yeah.
So like, imagine there's like this scenario, right? And then you find out about it, you go into lockdown, right? So one of your like thoughts would be like, okay, there's a school shooter, right? And I'm in the corner, right? And then what would go through my mind is that, well, I'm locked in here, right? I don't know what the next like possible situation could be. So what, like, my instantaneous reaction would be, like, I gotta get out of here, right? Even if I'm in a lockdown, even if I know that the teacher would say no, right? My instant reaction would be, like, to run away from the school as far as possible. So, like, to not do that, what other, like, things do we have? Because, like, in a way, imagine like, the shooter's right there, he comes in, and I wouldn't just, like, let him shoot, like, the entire, like, class out, okay? I want to leave before that happens.
So ideally, the question is, what happens if I lock myself, in the classroom, in the school, and the gunman or the person with a knife or whatever, tries to break in and assault you? Usually, my 24 years of doing this, the bad people go to the least resistance. So the doors in all the Chandler Unified Schools are super reinforced. It's super hard for us to even kick them in. We have special rams and battering stuff, whatever we have to bust in doors. And it's going to take a lot of hits to do that. So if you decide you don't want to stay in there, you decide you want to run through the hallway, that's the path of least resistance. That's the person he's going to go out and start shooting indiscriminately or going after. Your best bet is to stay in that locked classroom because one or two people trying to knock in that door. If you go to one of the Chandler schools, I'm sure the Phoenix ones and Tempe are the same way, are super reinforced with those locks. So your safest spot is to stay secure in that place. All right?
So if you call 911, will it call you guys or like the entire like fire department or ambulance?
911 is right on my radio right here. So whatever they're calling and they're dispatching us stuff, I've got it in my earpiece right now. So.
Will it also call the fire department?
If necessary, yes. If we need the fire department, a lot of these, like the commander said, are what we call unified command situations. So we're going to be working closely with the fire department for anyone who's hurt. We'll be working with other agencies who may be coming from Phoenix or Tempe, Mesa, or wherever we're at. And we're working with federal partners and county officers too. So yeah, we're going to have a lot of resources out here that we all work together and we train together, for sure.
And I also know taekwondo, so if anybody has
That's a good skill to have, right? Last resort, we call that taekwondo. Yeah.
Okay. All right, now, I want to transition to what I said was, I think, the bigger way to address this now. For some instances, somebody who wants to do something bad, they're going to do something bad. But there's been numerous studies, especially about school shootings and incidents, and one that I'm most familiar with was conducted by researchers in conjunction with the FBI. And they discovered that really the best way I can say it, that the best way to prevent school shootings was through kindness. And there was a couple factors. First, every individual person, they would figure out how many, they call them touch points. And a touch point was a positive interaction with that person by somebody. So in the school setting, a touch point could come from a teacher saying something encouraging or nice to that student. A positive touch point could come from a friend that they might see. And they discovered that some people, some students, don't have very many touch points, very many positive interactions. The statistics then supported that those people were the people who became upset, became disgruntled, and were at greatest risk for acting out on negative feelings or emotions. So the study then basically says the nicer that we can be to each other, from parent to child, friend to friend, neighbors, teachers, co-workers, the nicer we can be, the more positive touch points that we can extend to somebody else, the greater the likelihood that you do not see any type of negative school shooting, type of violence, some type of negative event in the community. And so it really can be said in another way. Extend love, extend kindness to everybody, show charity, avoid bullying, right? And then that's from us going outwards, right? There's also a concept of when maybe something negative comes our way, maybe somebody says something bad to us. Instead of keeping it inside and thinking about it, maybe we could find a way to let it go. Maybe there's a concept of accepting somebody's apology or forgiving them for something that maybe they didn't mean to say. And I was really surprised that this government study would actually get down to something so simple as just being nice, being civil. Because I don't know about you, but I like it when people are nice to me, and when I feel that, I'm in a much happier mood, and I'm more disposed to go be kind and help others, and it kind of, it grows, right? It builds upon itself. But I think, like most people, if I have a bad morning, or if driving into work is tough because traffic's terrible and I'm feeling grumpy, then I might be at risk of making Jeff a little bit grumpy, right? And then maybe he'll make somebody else grumpy. So the daily fight to keep our communities safe, really, it's not an overstatement, begins with us being as kind and loving and forgiving as we can to everybody around us. Even sometimes people are hard to be nice to. I know that can be the case. Some people are just hard to be nice to. But a smile, a kind word, some type of service, these are the small little building blocks that keep a community safer than all the guns and all the safe rooms that we can build. Yes, not my original idea. I wish it was mine, but I share that feeling with you. Okay, so now with that added understanding of like a deeper reason to show kindness and love, we have the time is yours. We've got till 6:30 to answer questions, to provide whatever it is that you would like to ask, any type of police-related thing, from young to oldish, right? So please don't be afraid to ask us whatever you'd like to know. Yes, sir.
Who funds the police?
You do. The question is, who funds the police? And this is a fantastic question. So at the end of the day, whenever somebody shops in Chandler or pays their taxes in Chandler through some type of way, then that money pays for government operations. We're part of the government, and so that's where we get our funding. The Chandler Police Department is one of the most fortunate police departments that I know of. We have the support of the community at such an incredible level, and we love you for it. We are the ones that get paid to give our full-time attention to public safety, but we cannot be successful without our partnerships with the community, right? almost every crime is solved not by us, but by you. Somebody sees something and they call and they give us a tip, they give us the clues, they help us out. And so you're talking about, money, the funding comes from the taxpayer, but the success comes from the community. And I'm happy to share, we just discovered that we are in our 4th year of near record lows of crime in the city of Chandler. Right? And once again, so yes, we show up, we put on the uniform and we go out and do our thing, but we don't do it in a vacuum. We don't do it by ourselves, and it's because of our partnerships that make that successful. So great question. What other questions? Yes, you're.
What weapons do you carry?
The question is, what weapons do I carry? I love this question, and I'm going to answer it, but I'm going to answer it, and it might sound like I'm being silly, but I truly